A bandsaw consists of two wheels, to which a continuous blade is attached. When the lower wheel is driven by the motor, this moves the blade and allows it to cut against the table. The blade is set at 90 degrees to the table. The bandsaw will cut internal and external curves, parallel and angled cut. The upper blade guard is adjustable and should be set to no more than 12 mm above the thickness of the material being cut. The guide fence is used when making a parallel cut along a straight edge. The use of a spacer will allow the upper blade guard to be positioned correctly. Switch on at the isolating switch. Switch on for the task light. Open the extraction gate. Position the task light. Set the upper blade guard to no more than 12 mm above the object. Tighten the blade guard lock. Switch on using the green button. Proceed to cut out the object working on the waste side of your pencil line. Move the object with your hands, keeping them well away from the blade. Positioning of hands behind the blade and using push sticks to maintain a safe distance from the blade. The more narrow the bandsaw blade, the smaller radius it is possible to cut. This is a 6 mm blade and can cut a 30 mm radius. Switch off with the red button. Cross-cutting an angle using the mitre fence. Set a sliding bevel to the desired angle. Secure the guide fence onto the table. Position the mitre fence onto the slot on the table. Use the sliding bevel to copy the angle onto the mitre fence. The guide fence represents the direction of cut. Lock the mitre fence. Clear the table of the guide fence. Place object up against mitre fence. Lower the upper guard. Switch on with the green button. Push mitre fence through the saw blade, cutting through the object. Switch off with the red button. Cutting a narrow parallel strip. Position the guide fence and the spacer. Lock the guide fence down, leaving the correct space between the blade and the spacer. Lower the upper blade guard. Have push sticks to hand. Switch on with the green button. Push object through the blade along the edge of the spacer. Use push sticks when necessary. Switch off with the red button. Tilting the table to remove an angled strip. Release the two table securing locks. Lift the table to the required angle, in this instance 45 degrees. Tighten the two securing locks. Fit the guide fence. Place object against guide fence. Adjust guide fence to the correct position. Switch on with the red button and push the object through the blade using a push stick. Using the bandsaw to cut a circle. Produce a square that is 2 to 3 millimeters greater than the diameter of the circle. Lower the upper blade guard. Secure the blade guard lock. Switch on with the green button and make a cut just into the centre of one of the edges. Switch off with the red button, mark out and pre-drill the centre of the square. Fit the circle cutting jig onto the table. Position the upper blade guard. Secure the jig onto the table using a G-clamp. Fit a panel pin into the centre of the squared object. Locate the radius adjustment slider onto the panel pin. Refit the slider back into the jig. Fit the edge with the small cut up against the blade. Lock the slider in position with the clamp. Switch on with the green button and proceed to push the square around through the blade to create your circle. Raise your upper blade guard in order to remove the circle. Cutting out the caliper. Extend the inside lines up to the edge of the object. Adjust the upper blade guard to no more than 12 millimeters above the thickness of material. Switch on with the green button. Proceed to cut out your caliper, working on the waste side of the pencil line. Use a push stick to prevent your fingers getting too close to the blade. Cut out the second piece of the caliper. You can use a push stick to form a temporary straight edge to enable a much more accurate cut. Switch off with the red button. Remove the waste ends by firstly squaring across above the template markings. Then use a mitre fence to create the square edge. Cut both pieces of the caliper together. Switch on with the green button. Holding the objects up against the mitre fence, push the mitre fence through the blade. Switch off with the red button.